Good evening, folks. My name is Bill Breeden, and welcome to tonight's Constellation Tour, number 16. Tonight I'm going to go over Cygnus, the Swan, in the northern celestial hemisphere. Cygnus is glorious. There's no other way to put it. It's one of the most fantastic constellations in the night sky. Cygnus is best viewed between August and October. Being a fairly northern constellation, though it is visible longer than that, it's easy to spot in July and also into November. So you've got several months to enjoy the wonders of Cygnus. And to find Cygnus, you want to look for the summer triangle. So I have Stellarium here set up for a field of view of 60 degrees from a suburban, moderately light polluted location set for August the 16th at 20 minutes after 10 p.m. So we're looking east, and you can see here this big square here. This is the Great Square of Pegasus, and coming off of Pegasus, these stars here that sort of help the Great Square form a dipper shape. This is Andromeda here. So let's look for the summer triangle. And in mid-August, the summer triangle is going to be really high up in the sky. Actually, it's near the zenith, so pretty easy to find. And the three stars of the summer triangle, the bright one is Vega, and the one that's a little bit further away from the other two is Altair, and then the third one is Deneb. And it's Deneb that we want to concentrate on tonight, because Deneb helps you find Cygnus the Swan. So let's turn our constellation lines on, and you will see that the three bright stars that make up the summer triangle are parts of different constellations. Vega is part of Lyra, Altair is part of Aquila, and Deneb is part of Cygnus. So as I said earlier, Cygnus is absolutely glorious. You can see this cross-shaped pattern here. That's also known as the Northern Cross. So Cygnus is known as the Northern Cross, or the Swan. And this star here marks the swan's eye, and Deneb marks the swan's tail, and these three stars mark the swan's wings. Let's have a look at the mythical characters. And you can see here Cygnus is shown as a beautiful swan just soaring overhead in the summer months. It's absolutely spectacular. Cygnus really does appear to soar overhead. Many a night out at a dark sky site, I've just taken a break from the eyepiece and just sat back in my lawn chair and just look up at Cygnus just majestically flying overhead. It is nothing short of breathtaking, even to the naked eye. So you can see the stars here with the mythical characters that make up the summer triangle. You have Vega, just part of Lyra, and it's shown here as a lyre. And you have Altair here, which is part of Aquila the eagle. And then you have Deneb over here, which is the swan's tail. Okay, there are two double stars in Cygnus that I would like to show you. The first one almost needs no introduction at all. Most amateur astronomers are familiar with Albireo. Albireo is in the right place in the sky. I mean, being in Cygnus, it's glorious. So let's have a look at Albireo. Albireo is also known as Beta Cygni, and it is 385 light years from Earth, shining at magnitude 3. I'm trying different eyepieces here to give you the best view. Through a 13mm Nagler here, through the simulation, you can see that Albireo is just beginning to split into its small bluish component and its brighter gold component. Let's split it the old-fashioned way here in the software. Give you an idea of more what it looks like in an eyepiece. This gives you a really good idea of what Albireo looks like. It's a bright gold and a just a little bit less bright bluish white star. In an eyepiece, this software doesn't do it justice. In an eyepiece, it is spectacular. It has a sparkle to it that's hard to describe, and the color contrast is striking. So if you get someone who wants to see color in the night sky, just point your telescope at Albireo and give them a look, and they will be shocked at how vivid the colors are. As I said before, Cygnus is absolutely spectacular. Let's turn our head this way, and you can see we're looking pretty far overhead tonight. This is the body of the Swan, this is the head, and this is the wings. So if you were at a suburban location looking nearly overhead, you'd see this glorious Swan just flying overhead. It's awesome, and you can just see the rift of the Milky Way here in the sky. So let's travel to a darker location to enjoy Cygnus even more so. Let's go a little further out in the suburbs. And at this point now, you can see that Cygnus is just chock full of stars, and it is in this really, really large swath of Milky Way. So let's look for another double star, 61 Cygni. And you can see here's the Northern Cross, here's the body, here are the wings. And if you form a square with these three stars, 61 Cygni is at this corner here. And through the finder scope, you can see that it's a really pretty gold color with a lot of background stars and a lot of Milky Way. And through the 13mm Nagler eyepiece, it can be easily split into these two components. 61 Cygni is only 11 light years away, so that's pretty near as stars go. It's 5th magnitude, so very easy to observe. Now this star over here, I'm going to move the telescope back to Deneb, and I'm going to show you, Deneb is Alpha Cygni, but I'm going to show you this. See these two stars right here? So if you remember, 61 Cygni was about here, and there's a pair of stars right here that I like to show people in a low power eyepiece, especially if I'm at a moderately light polluted location. See, this is Omicron 1 and Omicron 2, also known as 31 and 32 Cygni. So if you have a go-to telescope, you can have it point to either 31 Cygni or Omicron 1 Cygni. Let's go ahead and do that. And the reason I like to show people this part of the sky is because the Milky Way pattern here, the background stars, 31 Cygni is a beautiful double star. As you can see here, it's also blue and gold. And Omicron 2 will also be in the field if you have a low power eyepiece. So let's move it like this and I'll show you what I mean. Let's put it, there we go. That's the view in a lower power eyepiece. This is a 19 millimeter panoptic, and you can see that Omicron 1 splits into these really pretty stars here. In fact, it might be this one here that actually split, and Omicron split again. And here's Omicron 2 here. So it's almost like another Mizar system with Mizar and Alcor, and then Mizar splits again. It's sort of the same way. Omicron 1 or 31 Cygni splits into this blue and gold, and then Omicron 2 is out here. So almost no matter what power you put on it, you are going to have a beautiful field of view to show people. So I wanted to share that one with you. See, Omicron 2 is 1,538 light years away. Omicron 1 is 751 light years away. And then this one here, this is 30 Cygni, this blue one, 644 light years away. So I'm not sure these are related or true binaries, that they may just be line of sight binaries, or optical binaries, which just means they happen to lie along the same line of sight, but they're at different distances. But in the busy part of the Milky Way here in Cygnus, it's not surprising to me. Cygnus never fails to impress. Okay, let's return to naked eye view here, and let's pack our telescope and go to an even darker site. And now this is from a dark location. So as you can see, here's the Northern Cross here, here's the Swan, here's the eye, that's Albireo, here's the tail, that's Deneb, here are the wings, and then in this area here was 61 Cygni, and then this out here was 31 and 32 Cygni, or Omicron 1 and Omicron 2 Cygni. Just beautiful areas of the sky here, as you can see from a dark site. We're right in the rift of the Milky Way. So there are two Messier objects. They're open clusters in Cygnus. M29 and M29 is 13,000 light years away. Let's have a look at it through the finder. And you can see that this is a really nice open cluster, shining at magnitude 6.6. And in the 19 millimeter panoptic, you can see that this open cluster has both brighter and slightly fainter members. So it makes a striking open cluster. Okay, and the other open cluster in Cygnus on the Messier list is M39. And M39 is magnitude 4.6. It's 825 light years away, so that's actually pretty near for an open cluster. It's less than 1,000 light years away. And you can see it's a little bit more sparse. It has fewer members, but they seem to be brighter. And through the 19 millimeter panoptic, you can see all these brighter members here with the with the much fainter background Milky Way stars. So I'm under the impression that it's the brighter members that are the actual open cluster, and these fainter members are background Milky Way stars. That's the impression I get anyway. The next object on my deep sky list, Cygnus is just chock full of goodies, is a planetary nebula known as the Blinking Planetary, NGC 6826. And you can see in the finder scope here with the field of view of about 6 degrees that this 9th magnitude planetary nebula looks almost stellar. It does subtend a little bit of a disk. It is 5,100 light years away. And let's put a higher power eyepiece on it. Let's do the 13 millimeter Nagler. You can see it is a little bit of a disk, but let's manually magnify this. And you can see it starts to appear as an actual planetary nebula. Now, planetary nebula are called that simply because they are shaped like planets. They have nothing to do with actual planets. And they are dying stars, stars nearing the end of its life cycle, and it is casting off its outer layers. The Blinking Planetary is famous for an optical illusion that is, you have to see it to believe it. Basically, if you have it in a medium power eyepiece, maybe a 13 millimeter, 15 millimeter, if you look right at it, it seems to disappear. And as soon as you glance away from it just a little bit, it reappears. So then you try to look back at it, it disappears again. And that just keeps happening. And the reason is planetary nebulae are just in that brightness range where the focal point of your retina is not sensitive enough to react to it. But as soon as you move it off of the focal point of your retina, the other parts of your retina can pick it up. So you see it in your peripheral vision, you look right at it, it disappears. It's an amazing illusion. So that's why this one is called the Blinking Planetary. There are other planetary nebula that will show up that way and will blink, but this one is well known for that effect. Okay, let's go back to our naked eye view and get a little bit reoriented with where we are here. Here's Deneb, and when you've got this many stars in the sky, it begins to be hard to see where you are. Here's the Swan here. Here's Alberio, and here are the wings here, going this way. So I'll show you how much of the sky Cygnus occupies. It occupies all the area here within this border. So Cygnus is a pretty large constellation, and it does include a lot of this background Milky Way and also a lot of the dust lane here. So that's the reason that there's so much going on in Cygnus, and there's so many different types of deep sky objects to enjoy: double stars, planetary nebula, supernova remnants, and open clusters. It's incredible. It just doesn't quit. Okay, enough gushing on about how great and glorious Cygnus is. Let's look at NGC 6992 and NGC 6960. This is the Cygnus Loop area, or the Veil Nebula. So let's start with NGC 6960. This is probably the area of the Veil Nebula that is most observed. It's also known as the Western Veil, because if you see here, what I've got in the Telrad, this whole area here is called the Cygnus Loop. This, or the Veil Nebula, and this section here is the western side, and this section way over here is the eastern side. So let's have a look through the finder. And what you'll typically see through the finder is just this one star, this bright star here, 52 Cygni. But if you look through an eyepiece, let's go with a wider angle there, a 24 millimeter panoptic. Now this is not a bad simulation, it really isn't. What you'll typically see when people have the Veil Nebula in their telescope is you'll see this bright star, 52 Cygni, and you'll see this wispy, kind of light bluish green, feathery nebulosity here, for lack of a better word. And it is stunning. It really is. And it does take a larger aperture telescope to actually see it like this at all. It's going to be fainter than this, but it will knock your socks off. Okay, and then there's NGC 6992, and that's the eastern side. And the eastern side is not as often observed. It's a little bit more subtended, so it's a little harder to see. Let's put this in an eyepiece. And you can see here, the software kind of shows it the same way, but it's actually a little bit fainter, a little bit harder to see. So what would be really nice is to have a real wide angle view and to be able to see the entire Cygnus loop. This is a supernova remnant, and you can kind of tell that by looking at the shape of it. If you can imagine a star that was once like right here, casting off its outer layers long ago, and they've really dissipated out. Okay, I have one more object to show you in Cygnus, and that's the North American Nebula, NGC 7000. And then I've never been able to see the North American Nebula with my 8-inch telescope. I have an 8-inch SCT, but I have seen it in very large Dobsonians. I mean, above 20 inches in aperture. The North American Nebula is very, very large. You can see here this outer ring of the Telrad is that's 4 degrees of sky, and it's the North American Nebula is actually larger than that. So that's a lot of sky. You need a large aperture, low power instrument to be able to see that. It's best seen in photographs. The North American Nebula is 1,800 light years from Earth, and it's listed here at 4th magnitude. Don't believe that. That's total. So with it being so large, it does have a very low surface brightness. So this concludes my tour of Cygnus the Swan. Good night and good seeing.